Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, the government says at least 53 Taliban fighters and 13 Afghan soldiers have been killed during clashes in the past 24 hours. The Taliban are yet to comment on the statement but have claimed the responsibility for raiding a military checkpost in Kunduz. The surge in violence comes despite the resumption of peace talks in Doha. The U.S. Congress has certified Democrat Joe Biden's Electoral College victory in a joint session. President Donald Trump said he disagrees with the outcome of the election, but there will be an orderly transition on January the 20th. Earlier, 4 people died after Trump supporters stormed the Capitol Hill, prompting a curfew. Police have arrested 52 rioters as they smashed windows and scaled walls of the Capitol building. Pakistan's Foreign Office has once again expressed concerns on India's joining of the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member. At a press conference, the Foreign Office spokesman said India has been violating UN resolutions on Kashmir for the last 70 years. He said Pakistan believes that other members of the Security Council will not allow India to abuse its position. He also rejected Kabul's baseless allegations regarding the illegal transfer of explosive material to Afghanistan. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has hailed Saudi Arabia's efforts for the resolution of the Gulf dispute. He was speaking to his Saudi counterpart, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, over the phone. The two sides also agreed to extend bilateral cooperation on regional and international issues. Qureshi also appreciated the kingdom for supporting the resolutions on Kashmir and rising Islamophobia during the last year OIC summit in Niger. Pakistan has conducted a successful test flight of indigenously developed guided multi-launch rocket system. The military's media wing says Fatah-1 is capable of delivering a conventional warhead up to a range of 140 kilometers. The ISPR says the system will give the Pakistan Army capability of precision target engagement deep in the enemy territory. The global number of COVID-19 infections has surpassed 87 million with over 1.8 million deaths. Britain has recorded highest daily cases with over 62,000 new infections for the second day in a row as its caseload tops 2.8 million. China has reported its highest 63 single-day COVID-19 infections since July as authorities try to curb the outbreak near Beijing. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered nearly 2,500 new cases and 50 deaths overnight, taking the toll to over 10,500. And in cricket, England's women's cricket team will tour Pakistan in October this year for 2 T20s and 3 one-day internationals in Karachi. This will be their maiden visit to Pakistan. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Starting our news bulletin from Afghanistan, the government says at least 53 Taliban fighters and 13 Afghan soldiers have been killed during clashes in the past 24 hours. The Taliban are yet to comment on the statement, but have claimed the responsibility for raiding a military checkpost in Kunduz. Violence has flared up across the country as the two sides resumed peace talks in Doha after a 21-day pause. Pakistan and the United States have expressed concerns on the growing violence and urged all the sides to show restraint. Pakistan has once again expressed concerns over India's joining of UN Security Council as a non-permanent member. At a press conference, Foreign Ministry spokesperson said India has been violating UN resolutions on Kashmir for the last 70 years. Zahid Hafiz Chaudhary said India's belligerent actions pose a threat to peace and security in the region and to the international community. He said India continues to oppose Kashmiris and deny their inalienable right to self-determination. The spokesperson also rejected Kabul's baseless allegations regarding illegal transfer of explosive material to Afghanistan. He urged the Afghan government to refrain from public blame game, saying official channels must be used to discuss bilateral issues. The official extended Pakistan's felicitations to US President-elect Joe Biden after Congress certified his Electoral College victory. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has hailed Saudi Arabia's efforts for the resolution of the Gulf dispute. He was speaking to his Saudi counterpart, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, over the phone. The foreign minister said the culmination of the dispute is a good omen for peace and stability in the region. And they also agreed to extend bilateral cooperation on regional and international issues. Qureshi also lauded Riyadh for supporting the resolutions on Kashmir and rising Islamophobia during the OIC summit in Niger last year. Pakistan has conducted a successful test flight of indigenously developed guided multi-launcher rocket system. In a statement, the military's media wing said Fatah-1 is capable of delivering a conventional warhead up to a range of 140 kilometers. It said the system will give Pakistan's army capability of precision target engagement deep in enemy territory. President Arif Alvi and Prime Minister Imran Khan have congratulated the army and scientists on the successful flight test. Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee General Nadeem Raza and Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa have also extended felicitations. Tens of thousands of farmers on tractors have blocked the main expressway near the Indian capital, New Delhi. It is one of the biggest shows of strength since they began a sit-in against three farm laws more than a month ago. The march started from the protest sites of Singhu, Tikri and Ghazipur borders amid tight security. This comes a day ahead of the next round of talks between the farmers and the central government. Union leaders said the farmers participated in the march with over 3,500 tractors and trolleys. They termed today's march a rehearsal for the tractor parade on January the 26th. The parade would aim to march into Delhi from parts of Haryana, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. The U.S. Congress has certified Democrat Joe Biden's Electoral College victory in a joint session. President Donald Trump said, though he disagrees with the outcome of the election, but there will be an orderly transition on January the 20th. Earlier, 4 people died after President Donald Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, prompting a curfew. More in this report.
Chaos, confusion, and violence ensued at Capitol Hill as the U.S. Congress gathered to debate and authenticate President-elect Joe Biden's victory. Thousands of armed pro-Trump rioters clashed with the police, smashed windows, infiltrated, and occupied the Capitol. Police said they have arrested 52 rioters as they smashed windows and scaled walls of the building. Biden blasted the storming and called on President Donald Trump to step up and renounce the violence.
And this god-awful display today is bringing home to every Republican and Democrat and Independent in the nation that we must step up. This is the United States of America. There's never, ever, 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 ever been a thing we've tried to do that we've done it together. We've not been able to do it. So, President Trump, step up.
President Trump, after a while, called on his supporters to back off but did not condemn the infiltration and violence. Facebook and Twitter have temporarily blocked Trump's accounts for provoking violence. Reconvening after an hours-long delay, Vice President Mike Pence, along with scores of other legislators, condemned Trump supporters.
Today was a dark day in the history of the United States Capitol. But thanks to the swift efforts of U.S. Capitol Police, federal, state, and local law enforcement, the violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured, and the people's work continues. We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms.
After debate in the joint session, the Senate and the House of Representatives rejected 2 objections to the tally. Biden secured 306 votes, while Trump got 232. Joe Biden will be sworn as the 46th U.S. president on January 20th.
And to talk more about this, we are now joined by Mark Mirowitz, who is a professor at the State University of New York Maritime College. Mr. Mirowitz, thank you very much for your time at Indus News. First of all, this chaos is being seen as one of the worst days in the U.S. history. How do you think this will impact the overall landscape of the country?
Well, I mean, it's a major existential threat and challenge to American democracy, to the American future. But politically speaking, it is an existential issue for the Republican Party in terms of whether it's going to have a future. I think that in the last minute yesterday, many Republicans who were going to object to the electoral vote count for no reason in particular other than upending and destroying the system decided not to do that. And they were able to certify President Biden. So at the end of the day, we have to now start thinking about this. But I do believe that Mitch McConnell was correct when he said that if we don't follow the will of the people, we have a threat to the future of our democracy. I think that was very well said.
So, Mr. Mirowitz, when we talk about the constitutional actions, can it be taken against U.S. President Donald Trump for provoking a mob to attack Capitol Hill?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion of this, but much of it is really not very practical. I mean, I'd be very surprised. First of all, you do have the idea of impeaching the president again and convicting the president and throwing him out of office, which also would mean that the president could not run again in 2024, which he would be allowed to do under the Constitution. Is it possible to launch another impeachment and conviction and throw the president out in 13 days? Well, look, what happened yesterday was so unprecedented that maybe it is possible to do that. But the other route that's being discussed is the 25th Amendment, and that is the ability of the vice president, a majority of the cabinet, to declare the president unfit or unable to carry out his duties. The problem with that is that, and many of the pundits who discussed this on various cable networks did not read the whole 25th Amendment. You need to read it, because even if the vice president says that the president is unable to carry out his functions, then the president can say, I am, and then it goes to Congress, and Congress has to vote 2/3 majority in both houses to take the president out of office and make the vice president the acting president. Now, that has a time frame. There's a time frame for each event. The vice president and cabinet declare the president disabled, then the reaction from the president, then the Congress. There's a whole 21 days and there's a 48-hour period. There's only 13 days left. So, and this, I don't think this 25th Amendment, to my knowledge, I don't think it has been invoked. It was set up because of a situation where Franklin Roosevelt was very sick and died in his fourth term. So I don't think it's a practical matter. I would say, again, I'm going to throw this out there, I think the president will resign and pardon himself at this point, because Pence will become acting president for the next few days. But you could still have a lot of disorder and a lot of chaos in the country. You still have a lot of people who have been pro-Trump who are still carrying this banner. But after what they did yesterday, the vast majority of the Republican Party is no longer banner. But after what they did yesterday, the vast majority of the Republican Party is no longer welcome to them. So the other option that these supporters of President Trump would be to set up a third party, America First Party, that would be President Trump's party, and go to that party and leave the Republican Party. Because if Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney Okay, and Ben Sass and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post, these are all Republican bastions and leaders, are opposed to the president, accuse the president of an insurrection, of leading an insurrection against our country. The idea that a bastion of democracy, the Capitol, was attacked by mobs and thugs is so deeply disturbing to every American. And I happen to be a Republican, for true confessions, and I am appalled. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm welcome. I don't want to be in the Republican Party. Maybe I should become a Democrat. That's just a personal aside. I think many Republicans are very, very upset, and many Democrats and the whole country couldn't believe the scenes of what we were seeing yesterday.
Mr. Midowise, thank you very much for your time at Indus News. We really appreciate that. Now, moving on, in the U.S., the Democrat Party of President-elect Joe Biden has won control of the Senate with 2 victories in the state of Georgia. Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff defeated Republican incumbents Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, respectively. Democrats will control the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the White House for the first time since 2009. However, the Senate will be split 50-50 between the two parties, giving Vice President-elect Kamala Harris the tie-breaking vote. The result is a severe blow for outgoing Republican President Donald Trump. China says it will take all the necessary steps to safeguard its sovereignty and security interests. In a press briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said Beijing condemned U.S. interference in its internal affairs. Hua said the U.S. must pay a heavy price for its mistakes. This follows U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's comments on the recent arrest of 53 people in Hong Kong. In a statement, Pompeo said Washington may sanction those involved in the crackdown. He said the U.S. will send its ambassador to the United Nations, Kelly Craft, to visit Taiwan. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In Yemen, a Houthi artillery shelling in the southern part of the country has claimed 6 civilian lives and wounded 7 others. The Yemeni military says the shelling targeted a residential area in the Attazia district. The military statement said 2 women and a child are among those dead. The Houthi rebels have not yet acknowledged the attack. Last week, 3 blasts rocked an airport in Aden soon after the arrival of newly formed government members. At least 26 people were killed, with 100 others wounded in the explosions. Syria says it has intercepted and shot down multiple Israeli missiles. State media said the missiles were fired from the occupied Syrian Golan Heights. But Israeli media outlets claim that the missiles struck the Al-Quswa area south of the capital and the town of Al-Dimas west of Damascus. There are no reports of life or material damage yet. Israel's latest assault comes just a week after a round of airstrikes in western Syria, which killed a Syrian soldier and wounded several others. Libya's government of national accord and the Libyan National Army, led by Khalifa Haftar, have conducted a fresh prisoner swap. A member of GNA's military committee said Haftar's forces freed 27 prisoners in exchange of 8 members. He said the swap was carried out under supervision of 5+5 Libyan Joint Military Commission. He said the exchange took place in the Shawaraf area south of the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Libya's warring parties announced a permanent ceasefire in October last year, brokered by the UN in Geneva. The ceasefire was also facilitated by the Joint Military Committee, which includes 5 representatives from each of the rival parties. Germany says Iran's uranium enrichment at 20% is a massive violation of the nuclear deal. Foreign Minister Heiko Maas termed the breach unacceptable. Maas met foreign ministers from Jordan and Sweden in Amman as part of the Stockholm Initiative. The initiative aims at reversing the global trend towards global nuclear rearmament. He said there was a new opportunity for a deal with Iran as under President-elect Joe Biden, the U.S. might join the deal again. But he added that it was too early to judge the expectations of the incoming U.S. administration.
We believe there is also a new opportunity for the nuclear deal with Iran. The president-elect has so far proven to be open to the idea the United States might join the deal once more. In the coming weeks after January, it will very soon be about exploring the possibilities in that sense, what the expectations of the United States are. So, this is why we can only tell Iran that it would be very dangerous to risk spoiling this opportunity.
The global number of COVID-19 cases has surpassed 87 million with more than 1.88 million deaths. Britain has recorded the highest daily infections for the second straight day with over 62,000 cases overnight. Nationwide, the tally of infections has topped 2.8 million. More in this report.
As global coronavirus cases shoot through the roof, the pandemic is projected to get even worse in the coming months before it starts getting any better. The World Health Organization has warned of a hard road ahead before vaccines can turn the tides against the pandemic. Mexico has reported record infections in a day as vaccination efforts continue at a very slow pace. Hospitals in Peru and Bolivia are overflowing as fears of a devastating second wave grow, while health experts in the U.S. state of Arizona warn it has become the hot spot of the world. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has forecast that deaths in the country can hit 48,000 by January 30.
UK variant in the U.S. in at least 5 states, and I would be surprised if that number doesn't grow pretty rapidly. People travel around. This should not be a surprise. That does seem to be a virus that has about a 70% higher ability to transmit from one person to the next. And you can see how, therefore, it has been very successful in dominating what's happening in the UK. And we should think about where that's going to take us in the US as well.
The European Union has approved the Moderna vaccine, making it the second drug to be cleared for general use across the Eurozone. But anxiety continues to mount over the slow progress of vaccination programs in the region. The situation in the UK continues to worsen with record hospitalizations and more than 1,000 deaths reported overnight. However, despite stringent restrictions, the public has not been following the SOPs meted out by the government.
A lot busier than the first lockdown. There's a lot more people in central London, a lot more commuters on the trains. I think it's just busier in general. I mean, this time in March, the streets were completely empty, no traffic, completely dead, whereas there's people, as you can see, milling around.
Japan has set out a new record by reporting nearly 6,000 new cases as the government prepares to declare a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. And China has reported its highest number of cases in a single day since July as authorities try to contain a cluster near Beijing. Meanwhile, Australia has again moved the rollout of a coronavirus vaccine to mid to late February.
In Pakistan, 50 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to 10,511. The health ministry reported 2,482 new infections overnight. There are more than 34,000 active cases in the country. Out of over 495,000 countrywide cases, more than 450,000 people have recovered. The ministry said over 221,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province. Punjab has reported more than 142,000 cases so far. A South Korean delegation led by Foreign Ministry's Middle East Director Ko Kung-sok has left for Iran to secure the release of Seoul's tankers seized by Tehran. It will meet the Iranian Foreign Ministry officials to negotiate the vessel's release. Foreign Ministry spokesman says South Korean envoy to Iran spoke over the phone with the detained sailors and confirmed their safety. He said the sailors assured the ambassador of no issues with Iran's treatment of the crew members in the process of the seizure. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps seized a South Korean tanker amid tensions between the two over Tehran's frozen money in South Korean banks. However, Iran has assured multiple times that it seized the ship for violating maritime environmental laws rather than detaining the crew as hostage. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to boost the country's military capabilities. He made the remarks at the 8th Party Congress, which began on Tuesday in Pyongyang. Kim said the expansion in defense capabilities aims to ensure a peaceful environment. He also put forth goals for realizing the desired high levels of defense capabilities. The announcement comes despite international sanctions and pressure over the country's nuclear weapons program. The U.S. Department of Justice has confirmed that its email systems were hacked. The announcement is another indication of the gravity of the hack that shook Washington. In a statement, the Justice Department said 3% of its Office 365 mailboxes were potentially accessed, but it declined to share a precise figure. The statement said there was no indication any classified systems were compromised. It added the breach was discovered the day before Christmas, weeks after the first attacks were reported. On Tuesday, U.S. intelligence agencies accused Russia of massive cyber attacks on government departments. Moscow categorically denies responsibility for the hacking campaign against Washington. In Somalia, at least 3 people have been killed and 7 others injured in a bomb attack targeting a prison chief in the capital, Mogadishu. According to police, the prison chief survived the attack carried out on a busy road in the capital. The Al-Shabaab militant group claimed the responsibility for the attack. The attack follows a spate of bombing in recent times, mostly targeting security officials and civilians. It comes a week after a suicide car bomb killed 4 people, including 2 Turkish nationals outside Mogadishu. The United States has approved a bridge loan of $1.2 billion for Sudan. The loan is part of Washington's aid package to Sudan following its removal from the U.S. terror list. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin signed an agreement that allows the African country to clear World Bank areas. In a statement, the Treasury said the loan will be provided after Sudan implements conditions agreed upon under a bilateral MOU. It said the African country must also abide by conditions agreed with the World Bank. The statement added Mnuchin commended Khartoum's bold steps leading to its removal from the terror list. This comes after Khartoum announced normalizing ties with Israel under the Abraham Accords. The International Rescue Committee says it is working with Sudan to provide relief to Ethiopians in the refugee camps. Over 60,000 Ethiopians have fled to the bordering state following the conflict in Tigray region. In a statement, it said the refugees need more logistics for the transfer to camps from the border. It pointed out that inadequate provision of emergency aid services has slowed aid delivery. The committee was concerned about the number of unaccompanied children that make half of the refugee population. Hundreds of people were killed as Ethiopia launched a military offensive in the northern region last year. The European Union says it can no longer recognize Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate leader. This comes after the opposition leader lost his position as the head of the parliament. In a statement, the EU governments referred to Guaido as one of the outgoing representatives of the National Assembly and stressed that they still did not recognize Maduro as president. The bloc also threatened further sanctions against Nicolas Maduro's regime, but the US and Britain still see Guaido as the South American country's rightful leader. In the US, the ongoing eruption of Hawaii's Kilauea volcano has entered a new phase that is both beautiful and terrifying as well. After 2 weeks of spewing tons of lava, the erupting vent has taken the form of a dome fountain in Halema Umu'u crater. It resembles a red-hot balloon floating on the top of a lake of lava. The U.S. Geological Survey says the height of the fountain was estimated to be 16 feet. Dome fountains can occur when lava rapidly emerges from a constricted vent or fissure onto the surface, or as in this case, beneath the surface of lava lake, which remains a bubbling water fountain. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Cheerleaders dance and cheer on commuters outside a rail station in the Japanese capital of Tokyo. The cheerleaders lift commuters' spirits amid the surging cases of COVID-19. Details in this report.
Japan has set a new record by reporting nearly 6,000 cases in one day as the government prepares to declare a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. A group of cheerleaders perform outside a rail station in the capital city. Some people stop to capture the performance on their smartphones while others watch as they leave for work early in the morning.
Especially now, the spread of coronavirus isn't stopping. People have lost their jobs and have had to give up on many things. They can't do what they want to do or don't know what they should do. I think this is a period where people are really suffering a lot. During this time, if we had cried, people would feel depressed too. So with courage, we want to step forward and deliver a smile to cheer people up. We are doing this with the hope that people can feel even a little bit better.
Head cheerleader Kumi Asazuma says the group has been performing for more than 10 years to help energize morning commuters, but their mission has taken on new meaning ever since the pandemic started. She says the group will perform remotely during the upcoming state of emergency.
We probably will do the performance remotely by using computers or smartphones to broadcast from home separately and delivering our good vibes via social media.
Though still less seriously affected by the pandemic than many countries around the world, Japan has seen a huge spike in daily cases. The capital, Tokyo alone, reported more than 2,000 COVID-19 cases yesterday.
Divers in Russia jumping into icy water in the dead of winter to search for some ancient bones. They also dug up skulls of ancient bulls, horses and lions, as well as tools which were likely used by early humans. More in this report.
Ancient shark teeth, bones of woolly rhinoceros, mammoths and other extinct animals attracted the Russian paleontologists to the ice-covered Tobol River, some 2,000 kilometers east of Moscow. For almost 2 decades, scientists have teamed up with divers for a bone hunt on the outskirts of the town of Kurgan. The search takes place 3 meters underwater as the air temperature drops to minus 20 to 25 degrees Celsius.
There is no bigger pleasure but to overcome such difficulties and to see something which no one saw before you. Artifacts aged tens of thousands of millions of years, it gives a rare pleasure and thrill.
The bone-rich underwater area, which is believed to be around 1 kilometer long, was discovered by divers in 2004. It is described as a unique ancient bone deposit. According to the scientist, each year river waters uncover a new mix of remains as old as 66 million years.
Among rare finds, we had a bone of a cave lion, which was an extreme rarity then and still is one. As for the Turgai Sea, the West Siberian Glacial Lake period, we found fossil teeth and sharks and shark rays. They all are precious and unique, and they have fantastic energy in them.
This year's findings will traditionally be transferred to local museums after initial studies at the Russian Academy of Sciences.
Lows and the highs of the business world now. Pakistan has left India and Bangladesh behind in terms of export growth in November and December. In a tweet, Prime Minister Imran Khan congratulated the nation's exporters for the achievement. In a tweet, Khan said the regional export trends report presented to him by the Ministry of Commerce shows promise. He said compared to 2019, Pakistan managed to increase its exports by 18.3%. The Premier pointed out that during the same period, India and Bangladesh had negative growth. Wall Street stocks have risen as the U.S. Congress certified President-elect Joe Biden's Electoral College victory, but the gains were kept in check following Wednesday's sizable rally. Traders continue to focus on the possibility of additional stimulus after the Democratic Party secured a slim majority in the Senate. A 3% surge in the shares of J.P. Morgan Chase led the Dow Jones Industrial Average to trade higher. Nasdaq Composite traded over 1% up, while S&P 500 gained nearly 1%. Meanwhile, oil prices hiked up as supply constraints retain focus amid chaos in Washington. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Time to take a look at the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.